Welcome back. I'm Kirsten Patton. I'm going to be moderating today's session. Today, I'm joined by Angela Render with the IRS. And Angela, I'm going to have you introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Hi, I am currently the branch chief for enterprise content and the Office of Online Services at the Internal Revenue Service. This is a senior manager role. Before joining the IRS about 9 years ago, I had my own web development business and I wanted to move toward public service. So I started at the IRS as a content strategist, and except that it wasn't called then, it was called that then. It was called a senior web analyst. And in my current position, the I basically have moved up in the same kind of role. And it has been my honor and privilege to be with online services for all 9 years in my federal career.
Oh, wow, fantastic. So, Angela, can you please explain the goal of the first time filer customer journey project and why it was important for helping to improve irs.gov?
Absolutely. So much of what we do is reactionary. It's driven by shifting legislative mandates or other priorities. The important broader scope or longer term work can get pushed inside in favor of quick wins. And the customer service first priorities from the Taxpayer First Act, 21st Century Idea, as along with the IRS strategic plan, gave us some freedom to say if we could focus on anything, any content to make the customer experience better, what would we choose? For us, we looked at the data. We specifically targeted the top 250 pages to see what content on the site was used the most. Then we grouped it into specific tasks and mapped the journey that touched most of those tasks and the highest viewed pages. That journey ended up being an individual return filing journey. And after the data told us that to achieve the maximum impact, that person had to be an individual filer, we had to narrow the scope to something achievable. This is where the team's familiarity with the site and its content came into play. The team knew what wasn't obvious from the data, and that was what was missing. We knew that there was no start here content. We also knew that a person filing for the first time would need to be stepped through the process, and the existing content didn't do that. Knowing this, the team targeted, rewrote, and restructured content on 11 of the top pages of the site to make it easier to find and use, and to help it appear at the top of relevant search results. Those target pages typically drew around 712 million page views per year. Then the team wrote and strategically placed 9 new pages to fill significant content gaps, as illustrated by high search volume with poor results in external search engines. Those were necessary pages to support an individual filing their return. And the results not only made filing an individual return easier, the approach, process, and lessons learned will shape how we rework content on the website going forward.
Wow. Okay. So your team redesigned and strategically placed 20 key pages. What impact did this have on how people find and use tax information?
Within the first month, the 20 rewritten or new pages drew over 103.7 million views, which is roughly 28% of the traffic coming to irs.gov that month. 6 of the new pages entered the top 500 most viewed on irs.gov. The team tracked behaviors immediately before and after the updates. For pre-existing pages, results were also tracked year over year and monthly to consider seasonal changes. When we talk about internal search, we mean people using the search feature on irs.gov. When someone is on irs.gov page where the information they need is supposed to be, seeing them search for something from that page can indicate that the content didn't do its job. When we looked at the internal on-page search, we saw that across rewritten pages, internal search dropped by an average of 35% year over year and is 24% lower than the site-wide average. Across new pages, internal search is 31% lower than the site-wide average. Data also show people are engaging with the interlinked page series, with 39% of clicks from those pages going to other pages in the series. External search results for updated pages consistently improved, and in 2 instances went from below 4th position to 1st in organic results. Currently, around 52% of the irs.gov traffic comes from external search engines, so this is very important. These results suggest that people are finding the answers they need and expect.
User research showed that taxpayers often feel overwhelmed. How did your team address this challenge in the redesign?
IRS.gov has been around since 1996. Its growth has always been in response to tax law and both congressionally mandated and user demand for information. The challenge has come in that this growth was organic and the information was put up in response to something instead of planned with an eye toward the entire user experience. There are also some audiences who need all of the deep tax law and procedures. Those audiences are important, but the largest audience does not need that information, and it doesn't need it to be that technical. The first time Filer project approached this largest audience's needs as a complete journey. The team trimmed out anything that wasn't immediately relevant and shifted more technical or edge case information deeper into the site's information architecture. That way, the information was available if needed, but was not intrusive to completing simpler tasks. Post-project users said that it was less overwhelming to complete these tasks, and the website user flow metrics corroborate this.
And this effort involved collaboration across multiple IRS teams. So, how did that partnership contribute to the project's overall success?
The support from the content stakeholders across the IRS who were open to making deep changes to high-level pages based on data was critical to the project's success. They provided important feedback and expedited reviews and approvals for the project. The knowledge, professionalism, and passion of employees across the IRS have made information on the IRS's largest public-facing presence better. They were unified in their desire to do what's best for the public.
And what from this project can be applied to future IRS.gov improvements, as well as what's next for enhancing the taxpayer experience?
We learned a lot of lessons. One was an initial test for a new process for rewriting content. Our regular content processes have our editors working multiple projects at once. It's an agile method of pulling specific resources into projects when they're needed. This makes us able to adapt and support changes in priorities, business stakeholder availability, and emerging tax law. It means our resources are never idle. Our normal process doesn't include user testing either, since it's more reactive. We rely more heavily on pre and post project analysis. The drawback is that it can scatter those employees' attention, and the lack of firm timelines, while flexible, can lead to projects staying open longer than necessary. The process we tried for this project pulled the editorial resources off all other concerns and allowed them to focus on the internal content drafts with no distractions. It took about 6 weeks. When we released all but 2 of those resources to work on regular priorities, we also notified the business stakeholders when we would need their full attention and secured their formal commitment to the timelines and deliverables. Because we were focused, we were able to move very quickly. We're employing a more robust version of this process to rewrite the top 500 pages of content in an 8-month series of focus sprints. This refined process includes user testing, just like the first time filer did, so we can investigate and integrate user feedback. We prepared our partners ahead of this and received their agreement. And we've also applied the page structure and templating we used for the other content projects to things like employer identification numbers, individual tax ID numbers, and tax scams. The refinement of those page layouts will also allow us to move faster in the top 500 rewrite.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Angela, and to your team for all of your contributions. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we go?
Just thank you very much. I'm very honored to speak for this team. They are extremely professional. They were, in some cases for the business, very open to making really significant changes on content that if we didn't get it right, we would hear about that from the public. It would be all over the news. It would be all over social media if we didn't get this right. The fact that we saw such good response and that there wasn't any negativity to go along with it indicates that we did things well and that we're on the right track to doing things right going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.